Welcome to the Love Pod, where inspiration, vision, and real connection come alive. Wherever you are, you belong here.
Welcome to the Love Pod, everyone. I'm your guest, your host. Oh my goodness, we're starting off on a good note today. I'm your host, Nathaniel. We are so pleased to have a special guest, Christopher Bauer, who is joining us from Vancouver Island in the Duncan area. I've had a pleasure of meeting Christopher through school, and I'm really interested in his approach to legacy and helping people to establish legacy in life. Chris, you're a published co-author and you teach people how to set up their legacy in their life, but you're also a serial entrepreneur and a really interesting, eclectic collector of different interests and hobbies. You have a classic car business and you help restore cars, and you have some other really interesting passions. To me, when I met you, I'm like, this is a really interesting guy who I'd love to have on the show. And I know you have visions for helping people and wanting to make some impacts out there. So I'd like to welcome you to the show and to introduce you, or to ask you to introduce yourself, rather. Well, my words are all over the place today, which is great. It means we can start with some laughs. So welcome, Christopher. It's good having you on, man.
Yeah, thank you, Nathaniel. Yeah, I grew up in Victoria, spent most of my life there. I ended up doing my first trades program, which was the drafting certificate up in Campbell River, BC, for
Okay.
only 10 months because I thought that would get me to become an architect, but that was not enough. And then from there, I ended up going to Camosun College for 3 years in order to do my first 2 years for UBC to get into their Bachelor's of Environmental Design. But when I applied with my portfolio, my application, and my 60 credits in order to get years 3 and 4 of the Bachelor's of the Benz program, got declined
Oh, goodness.
because they wanted higher grades and not creativity,
Mm, mm.
which was rather frustrating. So I had to pivot in 2012 and go, okay, well, I can't go that route anymore. So what do you do? I cashed in the 60 credits, turned that into a diploma of like social sciences with a bit of you could say a focus on geography because I took a lot of
Okay.
geography courses, and I went down to Wyotech Sacramento where I did the collision refinishing program,
Okay.
the auto body or the collision refinishing, which was the auto body for the first half, then the automotive paint, and then I was originally going to do the hot rod as the elective, but I switched it to the ASM, the association. It's been a while, but the business side.
Okay.
So
Okay.
applied service management in order to run businesses and stuff, which
Interesting.
again, more US focused, not really Canadian focused, but
Okay.
yeah. You could say the car collection started also about 2012. That's when I got the 49 Hudson and I started looking for other classics because by 2013 I had a couple that I had to basically drive from BC, Canada down to the United States and
Okay.
then import myself.
Okay. Oh, interesting. All
Yeah.
right. I mean, it's a wide variety of skill sets you just mentioned there in, just that blurb, Christopher. And in meeting you too, I was really astounded all the different interests you have, but not only just interests, like you've actually invested a lot in terms of learning these skill sets and being a creative entrepreneur. And like, what do you feel like makes you tick to want to do that? All those different interests and finding ways of synergizing those things.
It's, you could say like these are interests, I guess, that I might have had in past lives, if you would understand that logic.
Sure.
Like, and it's almost like, okay, the like say the horticultural growing all the orchid stuff, it can be really well, besides the winter months, it's a little bit frustrating having to take care of them. But spring, summer, fall, it's zen. You go in there, it's quiet, you can do your
Mm,
thing.
mm,
The car collection, I like the challenge. I like going back, taking a vintage or a classic car, you bring it back to what it was, brand new from the
mm.
factory, and then you can drive around in the time capsule and you almost experience what it was like when it first came out, like
Wow.
whether it's the 20s, 30s, 40s, well, very few in the 40s, but 20s, 30s, like 50s and so forth.
It does feel like I've only been in a few classic cars. I've been around them and I've gone to a few of the shows, but when you sit in some of those boats and just the quality of design and craftsmanship, it feels like you're almost in the future. Like the quality of things. I feel like my parents' generation was they were really privileged. A lot of just the quality of manufacturing, the design of a lot of the vehicles that they were driving at affordable prices was is just pretty astounding. I mean, obviously nowadays we have different amenities and with like digital and stuff, but that can bring different headaches and stuff. What, so you, okay, you flew by the orchid collection. You have like a fairly robust orchid
200,
collection.
200.
200 orchids. Okay. We could talk a little bit about orchids. I bet there's some people who like have orchids and then they die because they don't know how to feed them properly. Like I've heard you're supposed to put like ice cubes on them and
No,
stuff like
no,
this.
no.
No? Okay. So how do you take care of orchids there,
I mean,
Christopher?
I, s- I had a handful, like you're saying, three to five.
Okay.
Got my first one when I was 11 years old.
Okay.
I kept that alive until I was 21, going
That's
through a
amazing.
breakup and everything. That's when I kind of lost the little collection I had. I took a
Mm,
6 year break, got back into them in 2017,
okay.
and I've been growing them ever since. I have like 17 years growing experience on them.
Wow.
I know the Dendrobium genus the best because that's the bulk of my collection.
Okay.
And those ones, they're drought tolerant. Like
Okay.
I'm only watering once every 2 weeks
Okay. Wow.
because they can handle the drought. I got other orchids now in my collection. It's like you gotta water them every week, otherwise they're gonna start to like wither, and you're gonna see that they're not happy. These guys, it's like yeah, you can forget about them. You can even forget about them for 3 months, and they'll still be happy
Wow. That's
in the
amazing.
winter time. Yeah, summertime, water, lots of water.
Okay.
Yeah. I would say depending on which genus of the orchids, that's the where I would start there, and then the cultural requirements either go to the local orchid societies or the American Orchid Society for cultural reference sheets,
Okay.
because I have a book. It's about 1900 pages. It's an encyclopedia on dendrobiums. I paid $85 for it,
Wow.
and
Wow.
it's my reference book. So it's like, if I can't grow it, what am I doing wrong? And you can go in there. It's like, all right,
Wow.
I've got this, this, this. I'm missing the humidity.
Okay.
That's why they're not surviving. Or I've got this, 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 and they require cooler temperatures because I tend to grow on the intermediate hot side.
Okay. Can you describe like I've been into a few like really green thumb folks like homes who have like just enormous amount of plants in their homes and it feels like entering into a different dimension when you go. So what is like I'm trying to piece together, you're living your home, Christopher. You have a shop with all these classic cars that you're restoring and then you have orchids all over your house and you live on the most parad the most the closest to paradise you can get in Canada on Vancouver Island in Duncan, which is a beautiful, beautiful town. Julie and I stayed in Duncan for quite a few, uh, I think a couple weeks actually, when we were looking for our next stage and where we wanted to be, and we met some really wonderful people in Duncan. It's a very unique town. So I feel like you're an enigma in a way. Like what is a day in the life of Christopher?
It depends honestly what's going on because that varies so much. They go, oh yeah, schedule your day out. It's like I have my hobbies, I got my businesses. I'm also taking care of my mother
Mm,
because she's had like health concerns and stuff.
okay,
So I'm her primary caregiver. And then, I mean, it's not all under one roof. I have a 1900 square foot detached garage that I
yeah,
put up in 2015, which is tied to my restoration business.
okay,
And apparently I can get 9 cars in there, but I can't work on any when it's that full. So
okay,
I know
okay,
it's capacity, but yeah, right now I think it's five. There's seven in there. There's one bay free.
okay.
Yeah, and
Wow.
I gotta juggle it around because I want to get more space so I can fix my electrical because my lights that were done in 2017, let's just say, I guess the vibrations of the building and maybe to like earthquakes, well, the self-tapping screws have decided to detach themselves. So
Okay,
I had another electrician quote me on bolting them back up. Not crazy expensive, but it's like I got to get that fixed
okay.
because it's
Always stuff to do, especially when you have so many like projects that take up a lot of space, like that, right? I mean,
well,
that's a big thing.
when you blow a car apart, it's like okay, yeah, it takes up one bay. You blow it apart, it's two and a half.
Yeah, I
The
can
amount of
imagine.
space.
Especially those old cars, they're so not only are they heavy, they're some of them are so long and so big inside, you know. It's pretty amazing. What has been
Yeah.
the favorite car that you've worked on?
I mean, I've got my favorite eras of cars. Like I have a 28 Essex and I was up, what was it, on Thursday up in Qualicum, meeting another guy who restored, he has a four-door sedan. Because
Okay.
I was getting, he had an extra set of doors that he wanted to get rid of for free. So, I mean, I can't say no to free car parts. You never know if I'm going to need them,
Yeah.
another guy's going to need them, or if I find another project that's missing them, then I've got them already.
Okay.
So I drove up there and just coming up in the conversation because my 28 Essex, it has original hickory spoke wheels. So they're almost, we're talking, it's
Wow.
98 years old, the wood on that car.
Wow. Wow. It's
They
amazing.
need to be redone because they're dry rotted and
Okay.
they're a little bit, they rattle. You don't want to be driving it like
Mm.
50 kilometers and have a rim come off and you're on the wooden spokes going down
Yeah.
the road.
Yeah, of
So
course.
I've been going down the rabbit hole of going, who respokes wooden wheels? Because you're looking
Mm.
for a very specialty shop.
Yeah.
And well, it points towards Amish. I have a tab open right now
Yeah.
from the American Automotive Association in the US, and there's four Woodwrights
Okay.
that do this type of work. Ohio,
Okay.
Pennsylvania, I think one southern US and one in California.
Okay.
I'm kind of leaning towards the like the Amish communities because that's kind of up their alley, but
Yeah.
it's how do you contact them? Because they don't use the internet.
Yeah.
I got phone numbers now, so I could leave a message.
Yeah.
And what do they cost? 'Cause that's the other
Yeah.
factor.
Well, they're probably more affordable than, you know, like some high end. We like in our quest for conscious communities, we never went to an Amish community, but we did meet some communities that were very much, you know, everything they built themselves. They lived off their own farm, and they're also restaurateurs, and they're just amazing people that share everything. And because they live so simply, their costs of living are down. So you might find like often with Amish furniture and things like they're known for like doing quarter sawn wood that just has a totally different grain, just super quality built. And but you can often find it at, you know, really reasonable prices compared to what you think it'd be. So I definitely encourage that. And also, uh, it would be pretty good research for you in terms of the legacy stuff that you are building, Christopher. Do you want to talk more about that? I mean, that really is the heart of,
Yeah,
you
we
know, the
could.
show and what you are doing. I think it's really interesting. Like when I met you, you have all these interests, and then but you're also focused on helping people to get a greater awareness of their legacy and what they can do to prepare for legacy and have those kinds of impacts. So thinking intergenerationally or multi or generationally um, uh, as a paradigm. What brought you to that, and why is this your main focus right now?
What brought me to it was I basically was taking my life experiences, my research and stuff I was doing in the past time from when I was in college, building my businesses and doing that, you know, you're like, okay, I want to figure out why the hell, you know, the world is doing this a certain way. So you want to read into it and you ask more questions. You end up going down more rabbit holes, researching, trying to understand stuff better. And it's like going, wait, why don't I just take a decade of experience, right? Compress it and actually build out something? Because not everybody understands what I'm going to be talking about.
Mhm.
And if you don't understand what I'm talking about, how are you going to build something that's going to technically outlast you? Everybody that I've ran across who builds legacy, they're all talking about generational wealth. Oh, I want to follow the Rothschilds. Oh, I want to follow the Rockefellers' plans. Oh, I want to follow the Morgans. Like it's like those people did it in the 1850s, 1860s
Mhm.
with corporate monopolies.
Mhm.
And I mean, Rockefeller in particular, he built the Standard Oil monopoly. And when it got busted up, that's when his wealth, I think, quadrupled. It went up 400% because he
Mhm.
made each individual company worth the parts greater than the whole.
Mhm.
So how are you going to use that logic in this day and age when there is like laws in place to stop monopolies, even though there are plenty of monopolies in place? And how are you going to build generational wealth when the whole financial sector is more tightly controlled than ever
Mhm.
versus doing I look at it the way the legacy should be. How can you help the community? How can you do more to help others around you? How can you help, build something that your kids are going to look back and go, hey,
Hmm.
my father actually did something worthwhile
Hmm.
versus, oh, he might leave me a trust fund, but that could be a small portion, but like a minute portion of the grand plan. Because I want to
Hmm.
see people doing more, working together. Like, yeah, we can, there's communities, I think Trail or BC, they
Yep.
solved homelessness.
Hmm.
There's other places that solve these issues. I mean, the addictions, Alberta's a better example because they actually have treatment centers.
Hmm.
Like, don't even reference BC. It's an absolute gong show how we've gone so far in the wrong direction.
Hmm.
It's like this is a great example of what not to do to help people who are on the lower privileged, who are suffering from addictions and all of that.
Yeah.
And then like you look at other issues, like why are we have I mean I'm more against taxation, but why are we taxing the middle class to death while the wealthy are, not giving anything back to society? They're just gambling it on the stock market, right?
Mhm. Well, they know how to leverage things, right? There's a different game. I think that when you have the knowledge at a certain level of society, you know how to not pay tax because you can leverage your businesses under trusts and doing this. So there's part of that game I think that it's good for us to understand. And it sounds like you are aware of a lot of that things. But what I really like about what you're saying, Christopher, is it's not so much about here's this, you know, money machine or like a trust that you're passing down, but it's really the impacts that you're leaving, especially in a social sense of what are we leaving behind, and what are we co-creating and collaborating to build now together that's going to impact our future generations. I think that's actually probably the most important conversation. I think why you and I get along, and have connected through Lightheart Vision, because this too is the focus of what we're doing to build conscious bridges between communities so that we're, not building in isolation. And you probably recognize this too, like even some of the really beautiful world teachers and energizers and inspiring uplifters of consciousness, they tend to build communities in isolation, and they tend to do it under like corporate lenses, and they're not necessarily um, building these grassroots things that are gonna, harmonize the capacity that we all have as co-creators and collaborators to create what we truly would like to see on Earth. So what is your vision for helping develop more legacy like you're talking about? What is the bigger long-term thing that you're focusing on?
The bigger play, I mean, it's the main focus because it comes down to the training I built out. So as I get the men who have successful businesses, who have families,
Hmm.
which I guess that the family part, if you leave that out, you have you run into the occasional guy going, oh, you built it for me. It's like going, do you have kids? Do you want kids? If they go, no, no, it's like, yeah, no, it's not for you. But if you find the people, the men who have the kids or want the kids who are building in that direction and have the money, then we can go and say, hey, go through the initial training. I want to work with them one on one. They get that aspect. So we can actually go through like, hey, you've built out this business. It's worth 8 figures. You're able to allocate, say, 250,000, 500,000 a year towards charities or other social projects in order to get some more credence in the community. Let's maximize your efforts and let's figure out the best possible routes that create the biggest impact for the buck, right? Like
Yeah.
if you have 1-to-1 ratio, 500,000 goes out and 500,000 actually helps in the community 1-to-1.
Yeah.
Because most of the time, charities, oh yeah, you give them, I mean, even if it's $100,000,
Hmm.
how much is administrative costs? How
Yeah.
much are other costs? And then that eats away at the grand sum of it. And what you get, what 50, 60% goes to the people who need it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there's also the other catch. If you deal with and solve said problem, the charity ceases to exist.
Mhm.
People don't want to go there
Yeah.
because, oh yeah, look, you solve the hunger crisis, you solve homelessness. Well, there goes all those charities.
Yeah.
There goes all those the NGOs, all
Mhm.
the 501(c)(3)s, because what their purpose, what their mission is no longer a problem.
Yeah.
So they will never completely address the problem because they cease to exist after that point.
Yeah. That is definitely a dilemma. We've talked on the show before about hierarchies and my background in Indigenous wellness. I think there's these two games that we play as human beings and as life. There's the finite games, and that's having our careers and doing or just literally the sports and things we play in. But then there's this infinite game, and it makes sense. Like I feel like hierarchies have a purpose to solve a problem or to be on a project or a task force. But when they become identifying structures like I am the CEO of this thing and it's supposed to just go forever, even though, you know, we evolve as a species, we change, we don't need the same businesses we did, even like the bigger questions of like looking at how we're sourcing energy, and some of the suppressed technologies that have, been exposed. And a lot of people, it's not hard to look up, these things. The water powered car has been invented by more than one person, and yet those people disappear and are not, yeah, and they're, so I feel like what you're saying is actually kind of probably a nerve in our society is like these, I would say, egoic structures that are meant to serve a purpose. They tend to take on an identity of their own and try to self-preserve themselves. So when you're doing your research for like, you know, you talk about training that you're developing, and I'd imagine the work for helping individuals, it sounds like focusing on men who are building these legacies. That sounds like very custom work. How are you helping them to orient in this world where there is so much noise out there? There's so many charities, and I see that problem you're talking about, these top-heavy organizations that aren't really helping the problem. I mean, I remember volunteering for the Salvation Army, and I know they do a lot of work and help a lot of people. But I was, helping when I was in college, and I remember I was serving these folks who were living on the streets for their meal, like hot dogs and things like that on styrofoam plates and throwaway cutlery, and I'm like, how is this solving their problem? If anything, they should get super dense, nutritious food to give them at least a boost in some way, help them think better, feel better. So I'm like, I started questioning things back then. It's like, and then I learned that the CEO of Salian is making like over, 500K a year. And I'm like, this is not feeling like this is how the game is supposed to be played. And I think a lot of people are coming to this awareness. So how does one person find, like charities that are in alignment with their values, that are actually effectively doing that? Or are you talking about like helping people to build those things themselves and actually get their hands, involved in these projects?
I mean, I have a free course in my free community. It just has to be fleshed out a little bit more. I've got just the headings of it, but it's basically a way to vet charities. It's a unique way because you don't want to hit any of, you want to get a 0 out of the 18 or 20 points. You do not want to
Okay.
score a single point. You
Okay.
score a point, it out the door because
Oh,
that
that's high
charity.
standards. I like your high standards, Christopher.
Well, this is written, it's not only referencing, I've used a cover image from Charles Lupton. He's an American pastor who wrote a book called Toxic Charity. I'm using
Okay.
his book cover as the cover image for the
Okay.
course
Yeah.
because he talks about that. I've got the book. And he also has another book called Charity Detox. I have that one too.
Okay.
And he wrote an article. He goes through why the charities are causing the problems, and he has his methodology. There was also an article which I'm referencing for the little free course I put together that talks about said issues because each of these issues, like I mean, telephilanthropy, where basically the person donating dictates how the charity should be
Hmm.
doing the money, or you have the corruption. It goes, it's pretty detailed, and I mean, each of the issues They're they have with reason. Like, I mean, another
Yeah.
obvious one is dependency.
Hmm.
Like, if you have the person, you keep giving them, the set amount of money or
Hmm.
stuff, they become dependent on it, and they're not going to go and build
Yeah.
anything or go back into the workforce because why?
Yeah.
They get
Exactly.
everything given to them. So,
Well, not only that too, it's sometimes it's really a catch-22 because a lot of people say on ODSP in Ontario, I know this how it is. They get a certain amount of money, and if they make more than say $300 a month on their own vocation, that actually starts taking off their ODSP. So it's this like you either need to like launch this very successful career or endeavor, and being from that position is very difficult, but you need to have an escape velocity. Otherwise, you're in this weird ground where if I work too much, I'm going to lose my benefits and I won't be able to survive. And so I hear what you're saying is like we can do better. But it also comes down to being self-responsible, like anyone who's focused on creating legacy and stewardship would be. So you have a free course, and this is in your school community, right, Chris?
yeah, it's a free community.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
can you talk more about that community and like what brought you to establishing it and what do you hope to see it become?
Well, what brought me to school is actually a friend of mine who was out in Nanaimo. He started his community. He's doing something like very similar to me, but instead of going for the successful entrepreneurs, he wants to help the everyday person.
Okay.
His community is Lifecraft, and it's all like in person. He doesn't want to do any digital or anything far away, and he wants to build it up that way. Very nice person. He has a background in photography
Okay.
and video, so he brought that onto the school platform. I came over to the school platform shortly after, and then I figured, you know what? I've got my training, I've got my back end. It might be a good place to host and bring in clientele. So I
Yeah.
started bridging over here, but for the longest time was they didn't have the processing limit up high enough. So I was wanting to do off board, like off platform processing until
Mm-hmm.
they bumped it. And right now they're just at the bottom end of my spectrum where I want to be. So
Okay.
I can bring on my high ticket clients and actually have school process the payments on that
Okay.
end.
Okay.
But the goal I figure was, bring it over here, create a free community as a feeder community into the main training that I'm doing. And then I've mentioned it on the tiers now that eventually once I have enough people who've gone through the high ticket, they can become part of an alumni community,
Okay. And
which
that'll
it
be
will
another community?
that'll be a separate community. And the kicker is you gotta go through. You've gotta have completed the high tickets through this community. That's the gate pass.
Eh,
Literally, if you have not gone through that and I don't have you on my spreadsheet as completed, you're out.
Okay, gotcha. So can you talk maybe more for listeners who aren't so familiar with the school platform and what it is? I would just say a few things like there's a lot of creative ways. You've mentioned, certain thresholds and different money models that are available for people starting communities and different intentionalities behind communities in terms of like which demographics you're focusing on. Now you're focusing on something that it isn't just about getting people through a legacy program. You're actually looking at fostering something where people can collaborate more and actually maybe pool their gifts and talents and resources. I'm assuming
Yeah,
to create like legacy that impacts community. Can you talk
yeah.
more about like maybe instead of the process, like what's your vision and what's your why? What's calling you to do this, Chris? Because you're a man of many talents. You could be doing many things.
Yeah, I look at it as like there's so many systemic problems that are in the world today. Like so many people like, oh yeah, I mean, a good analogy is, you've got the guy mopping the floor to fix the problems instead of fixing the leak. You
Hmm.
have like, I don't know, a dozen leaks behind on the broken pipes of all the systemic issues that play into each other. And you have the people mopping the floor saying, hey, this is gonna do it. This is gonna make things better while it's still pissing water out the other side.
Hmm.
I look at it going, no, the knowledge, the experience, no, the information, it's already out there. It's been out there for long before I've been around.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the two people who I cite in my course is Buckminster Fuller, the
Mhm.
American architect, and he also talked about societal change. And then there's Jack Fresco,
Mm.
which he was a futurist. He had a whole plan about how society could change, how we could make it better, how we could basically, we have the technology, we have the ability, like we've had it for a couple decades now, where we could go and reduce food costs down to zero.
Mhm.
Zero. Everybody could eat. There's no more world hunger. We could solve that tomorrow. But
Mhm.
because of the current capitalist system, because of the current fractional reserve banking system, they don't want to go there.
Mhm.
We could also solve the energy problem, but that, I mean, that's not what they talk about. If you research, like going into Tartaria, you research into all of that, there's stuff that's been hidden from us. Like Nikola Tesla touched on it.
Mhm.
There's ways that we could generate energy without having to rely on nuclear, solar, wind,
Mhm.
hydro, or geothermal, like
Yeah.
hydro at all. Like there's other ways because it's all in the ionosphere, aether. It's
Mhm.
the element that they've been hiding for everybody.
Mhm. Mhm.
But again, like it's hidden. People don't want to realize it. Like we have the knowledge, we have the know-how, we have a lot of stuff that's been hidden from us. If you take all these pieces together, you can push, change society, render the current version of society obsolete. And then those who are controlling the current version, how can you control a society where everybody is free?
Mhm.
Everyone has access to food. Like the bear, if you look at the Maslow's hierarchy, they have access for their basic needs. So
Yeah.
therefore they can create more, they can give back more, they can help more people.
Mhm.
Why can't we be there compared to where we are now, where you have many, many people on the bottom suffering, struggling to survive? And then you have the middle class, which is shrinking because of the taxation, because of shrinkflation, inflation, and the whole monetary destruction. Like we're mirroring the Weimar Republic. We're mirroring the Pengo, like the Hungarian when it went through the depression, and that currency went up to comically big numbers, like $100 billion notes.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like
Wow.
we're mirroring all those things. Like people go, "Oh yeah, Ethiopia." No, no, no. Go back further. It's happened a few times before.
Yeah.
Like why do we need to keep making the same mistake over and over and over and
Mhm.
over again? We have the ability to fix this. We have the ability to get past this, and we have the ability to stop repeating the cycle.
Mhm. Yeah, I see your passion, Chris, and there's some good questions what is a better way? What is a more equitable way that we can not only be in harmony with these systems, but I feel like these technologies and things can be in harmony with the lands and with our environments and all of our relations. There's a lot you said in there that for maybe someone who's hearing that for the first time is like, what is he talking about? And there's some really deep dives in there. I've gone on a few. I feel like simplicity is an art, and not to oversimplify anything what you said. I think there is, for most of us, for all of us, there's what we don't know. And a lot of people, like you said, are in a cycle, in a rhythm of their life where they're just living their lives. They're just want to feed their family, clothe and house their people, and they're not thinking about these larger problems. And so I appreciate when I meet someone like you who is taking like vast knowledge, doing your own research, and looking at how can we actually impact things and create a more equitable society. There is there is a way to, I think, deliver that. And I from my limited perspective, like I'm not an economist. I'm not, I don't have these, but I do believe I agree wholeheartedly with you saying there's got to be better ways where we all feel like that we all belong and we're all at home with one another. Why? So not to focus on the problem, I'm just curious on what you think causes these repetitive cycles. And because sometimes when we see the pattern, then we're able to show a new pattern of what's possible. And I think there's a lot of minds and hearts and probably interdimensional perspectives and beings that are focused on solving these problems for humanity. I've heard this before when I was working on film. Really wonderful. Uh, he was the lighting director. I forget his actual things, but he's well known in the film industry, David Owens. And I was working on a set with him, and he was big into what people would call conspiracy theories. And I asked him, and I didn't really have that much awareness. I'm more of a generalist, and I'm aware of things. And he said something, Christopher, that will always stay with me. And he said, you know, Nathaniel, for as many individuals who are conspiring in a way that seems to be damaging to humankind or parasitical in nature. He said there are many more beings who are conspiring in the upliftment of for the human consciousness and the human species. And I thought that was really beautiful because here he was very passionate, very interested like you, and he was aware of a lot of the things that are going on, and just like uh, George Carlin talked about in his later years, it doesn't take a big plan. It just takes a handful of selfishly minded people to get together to bend the rules in their favor. And here we have these messes that you said that are leaking in the pipes, and to me, that's just a symptom of the ego drive. So yeah, like, what do you think about what I'm saying? Just conversationally, and how, yeah, because I feel like the more that we can be aware of the problems, but the more we can focus on what are some solutions, and you're working on them, which is why I respect you. Like, you're building stuff to help this. What do you think about the things I'm saying?
Well, I mean, some of the problems, let's just say I don't want to mention on the podcast because
Sure.
this will get this episode taken down. I'm very aware of the censorship and I've been
Yeah.
heavily censored. So, like, if you really want to know, they're out there if you do the research.
Yeah.
I will not say
Yeah.
because this episode will be off the internet.
I got
Especially
you.
YouTube is notorious for taking down videos. So, yeah, the problems, research yourself because that's the
Yeah.
best route about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
However, the solutions, yeah, it's more like people coming together to ask the questions. I mean, the last 6 years, there's more and more people
Yeah.
going, why are we doing this way? Why are
Yeah.
we? Because I mean, our health system doesn't make people healthy. It keeps people sick.
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
money system doesn't help people, well, doesn't help the vast majority of the people get wealthy. It keeps
Hmm.
them stuck where they're just getting by.
Yeah.
And then you have the other side, which is the military, and what's more profitable? Constant conflict. Why we've had
Hmm.
constant conflict like in Ukraine and other countries,
Hmm.
and most of the people who are controlling what's going on are playing both sides of the conflict. They're
Yeah.
selling weapons to both in order to
Yeah.
have that, or they're the ones sending the jackals in order to topple the governments, like what happened in Venezuela.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and I hear you. You know, it's interesting that you bring this up. I was just on a call. I might have shared the book reference with you. A really beautiful book by a woman called Sarah McCrum, and it's called Love Money, Money Loves You. And it's actually written from the consciousness of money, because a lot of us are, told all these beliefs about money, like money is some source of evil or whatnot. But really, it is a tool of exchange, a very complex tool that we've created. And you mentioned a few iterations of that, like the fiat money system, fractional banking, and now we have these other emerging, um, you know, tools that money can be in exchange. But really, is that book talks about is the exchange of value between human beings. It's like, I mean, it connects to the bartering system. It's what allows us to exchange value with one another. And I think we're seeing a lot of the game changing. More decentralized finance coming with blockchain, and of course centralized financiers are looking at that, and that's threatening their monopoly, as you you brought up. And we're seeing a lot of change, and people are probably easily persuaded to be fearful of these things, as if there's these powers outside of them that are um, manipulating, that they have no control of. But a lot of it comes down to awareness, right? And it sounds like that's what you want to do in your community, is foster awareness through training and through helping people see that there's a legacy that they can build and actually have meaningful impacts. And I appreciate you not going too far into the weeds and this stuff, because even you mentioned like Nikolai Tesla. I remember when I started learning about Nikolai Tesla, like, and reading his autobiography and stuff, was probably a decade before it became back to the mainstream. Even though, you know, we would not have electricity without him. In the modern version of electricity, like Thomas Edison's version of electricity was direct current to everyone. So we could imagine power stations every couple blocks and wires everywhere, like just a totally different view of society. So a lot of what you're saying is we don't often, as human beings, see how powerful, how impactful these ideologies and these systems are on us because it's all we know. And that's what I meant about people in their routine. So how can we expand our thinking, our vision from your perspective, Chris, and really start laying a foundation? Sounds like joining your community would be a good step for those who feel inclined to this. So I encourage people to do that, and we'll put that in the show notes. But also, how can we start claiming that individual sense of power and responsibility from your perspective?
I mean, I look at it, it is part of the big training, but you have to go in before you can go out. You got to understand yourself. You got to understand why you're doing what you're doing. Like there's a very big introspective component to
Hmm.
what I've built out. It's actually, I split it off from the main training. So if they want to just do that and then do the main training in the future, it's a smaller side course.
Okay.
But I look at it like, in order to understand all what is going on, in order to see that, you got to first be open-minded to it. I hear some people praising, oh, it's better be closed-minded. But I mean, again, the analogy of the parachute. So you want to be closed-minded when you're falling? Because, yeah, you're going to hit the ground pretty hard. Versus if you're open-minded, you're gonna have you'll see more, you'll understand more, you'll
Mm,
question more. Because I mean, there's also like what you said earlier. You don't know what you don't know. We
mhm,
only
mhm.
know a very, very, very tiny sliver
Yeah.
of what's actually in the world, and then what we think we don't know is only maybe marginally bigger. There
Hmm.
is a very big part of the pie that we don't know, we don't know.
Yeah.
And if until you acknowledge that you really know nothing in the grand scheme of things, you're constantly having to learn,
Hmm.
then we can go from there. Because once we go from, hey, you're somebody who still needs to learn, gain knowledge, gain experience in order to move towards enlightenment, in order to understand, to contribute more to society, then we can go there. Because other people, they're closed-minded. They got their ego is inflated. There's other blockages in their life, and I cannot get through to them for the
Hmm.
life of me. So why waste my time for
Hmm.
people who do not see that the stepping stones that I'm laying out for them will lead to a much greater path, a much greater potential versus going the route or the path that's way more worn, way more traveled because,
Hmm.
hey, Tom, Dick, and Jerry, they all did it. They all made several $1 million, so let's all go that way.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I agree. Well, and it's natural. Like people, there's a lot of people who prioritize certainty as a human need, and when you start peeling the layers, when you're talking about like, you mentioned like alternative energy sources and a history that we've been. I mean, there's questions, right? There's a lot of questions. If you just look at historical evidence, you look at photos of, cities that existed like right at the time of discovery of the Americas, and you look at blimps that just disappeared out of history. There's lots of unanswered
The mud
questions.
flood.
The mud floods, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was
I
thinking of
mean,
that as well. There's unanswered questions, but human civilization, as much as we put on a pedestal individualism and individual thinking, most people are very much herd mentalists. Like they want to go with the flow because it takes a lot of courage, Chris, to stand up. Like it actually took me almost 2 decades to really start sharing about my encounters with Christ consciousness and some of the spiritual experiences I've had in a public setting. I've always been able to speak one to one, but to really to do something different and go against the grain, it takes courage, right? So you're looking for individuals who are um willing to face some of these unknowns in their life, it sounds like.
yeah, I mean, you could say I have the unfortunate privilege. I never really fit in. Like I put up in your community, I never really fit in. So to go against the grain, it's the natural approach. Because when you go, everyone's going this way, it's like that doesn't feel comfortable. I want to go this way.
Yeah.
I want to do my own thing. And then you have people looking at you weird. It's like, why aren't you following along? And I go, why? Why do I want to go and go in that direction when it might not be the right direction? I mean, I'm also I can be a walking contradiction, which is I can have two opposing beliefs at the same time
Hmm.
without the middle ground. So you have like I mean, there's some stuff that's just with my personality type. It can drive people nuts 'cause, like, you oppose this, but you also support this. It's like,
Mm.
what?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I've heard this and I contemplated a lot that paradox actually is the window from which we can awaken. It was actually contemplating paradox that gave me my first experiences of awakening because I was not spiritually inclined. And even now, like, I mean, I see us all as spiritual beings having a spiritual experience, but what is that? I mean, I could just as easily substitute conscious beings having a conscious experience. To me, it's just the reality of who and what we are. It's not something that is ephemeral or, I hear this term, I still don't really fully know what it means, woo woo. Like to me, it's just like life is miraculous. Like we've just normalized it. And then humans, in their attempt to figure it out, have created systems that are delusional in some ways and fabricated and you have to create a structure and container. I mean, just like the whole corporate identity and the fact that we can't really contract with a corporation. So, hey, let's make a spiritual being into a corporation, and then we can contract with them. Like, there's all these layers of to the onion of our civilization, which Alan Watts, like, I think, very poetically and not that I've done deep dives in him, but everything I've heard, like, he had this really beautiful way of articulating. It's very uncivilized to start calling out, when people are sleeping at the wheel and to start calling out the game that's being played because part of this game is consciousness itself having a relationship with itself. Like we took on forgetting who we are so that we could remember. And I feel like we are in a time now of great remembering where many of us, you are not, I mean, as much as you feel like you don't belong, Christopher, I've met I've met many people who have a similar inclination to you, who are seeking a greater truth, who are seeking to have impacts and have gone against the grain of society. So I feel like your people are out there and they're starting to gather. And I feel like COVID and all that stuff really kind of brought people together. It's almost like shook them out of their homes and then they started finding each other. How is this journey of you like taking on becoming a community builder and starting to connect with people? Have you found more resonance and connection in individuals in these times where maybe people are looking for this stuff more?
Well, there are more out there. I will agree with you on that. But I mean, two quotes. One from the Empath Survival Guide is going to people who don't fit in. Like these days, they're here to create the new world. We're here
I
to
like it.
create.
Yeah.
And then another point is trying to remember, like you have the Empath Survival. Yeah. The other point would be, yes, we have all these people like working together to do all of this. Like we are gonna eventually start bridging and getting all that. Um, it's just going and like finding the other outcasts, finding the other
Hmm.
people who,
Yeah.
because I mean, we all are working for a similar goal. It's just getting it now, like the paths to actually merge. Because the isolation, it ended up. That's when I built out my big training. It
Mhm.
went from a half an hour training to like, okay, you can't go anywhere, you can't socialize.
Yeah,
The,
I
the
see.
lock the lockdowns for an introvert was the best thing ever. I could just sit down and basically go build out, do stuff, focus on what I wanted to focus on, no social pressure. Like
Yeah,
to take
yeah.
a 30-minute pre-recorded course and to blow it out to 22 and a half hours in
Yeah,
half
that's
a
amazing.
year. So that was actually quite beneficial. They go, oh, it was detrimental in other aspects. It's like I went from zero to having like an actual viable product very rapidly, besides having to deal with other stuff in my life.
Hmm.
And it's just like I know with all what's going on in the world, where we're going, if we can have enough people come together, we can find the other black sheep. We can
Hmm.
get everybody to work together. We can divert. We can
Yeah.
stop what they're trying to push, what they're going to try and push pretty soon.
Mm. It's interesting during a lot of that period of time. I spent a lot of time in nature, and I had some, some pretty profound. experiences myself and really connecting to Mother Earth. I spent a lot of time actually barefoot in the forest, cleaning the land. That's what my spirit name means, is the keeper of the land. And I I got a lot of insights during that time, and I saw that there were some beautiful gifts like you just shared for those of us who were listening, who are willing to go within, who are willing to do the creative work that we were feeling called to. Like there's a lot of gifts. And one thing I noticed, especially like Julie and I left the country because we weren't conforming to the mandates and stuff of the Corporation of Canada. And before they closed the borders, we left. We're just like, we didn't want to, we weren't running away from anything. We just didn't feel that we belonged, and we wanted to look for where we did belong. And we looked for conscious communities everywhere we went, and we met a lot of beautiful people. And everywhere I went, I just realized, because I'd never traveled that much, but I realized that people are good-hearted everywhere we went. And it was just maybe a minority of what we call they, even though a lot of us were labeled fringe minority. But one thing I did, I feel like I don't want to call it a mistake, but I feel like it was an opportunity for a different perception, a higher vision, because a lot of what happened, the quote unquote leader of this country was, for those who did feel sidelined and were questioning and were not, allowing the mandates to impose on them, like the injections and stuff, they rallied around this, and all that you saw was F Trudeau everywhere on the flags. And I felt like if we really look at the grand scope of life, and of course he's an actor, he's a puppet, there's people behind him pulling and telling him what to do. But even if we were to, as a species, say we demand a higher standard, that we recognize the oneness, the interconnection in all this, that if we actually poured on love on our leaders like this, and we see a lot of this polarization speak still happening, I feel like we would have had a different result as a nation, and we would have come together in a different way. And I think it's the same if you were to extend back to like World War II, whatever the actual reality of the polarity of those times, same thing. You hear this, you hear it's like, if people would stand up and say, no, we're not going to participate in the violence. We're just going to love, like we recognize you're a wounded person, or you're a wounded group of people, and we'll fight for what we love, but we're going to think for ourselves. And I feel like this is a big lesson for our species, right? Because what I noticed is, like, after with COVID and lockdowns, like I noticed that people, it finally made sense to me what happened in Germany, and all, the how people can get so sucked into fear, and then will start taking on beliefs of separation. And I feel like we have an opportunity to make amends to that. And it's through like the legacy that you're talking about. It's through doing that inner work first, and then looking at what we can build. So what does a higher vision of the world look like for you, Christopher? Sorry, that was a little bit of a a little bit of a run on for you. But
Yeah.
what does that vision look like, where there is no more they, like we've just turned our attention away from whatever those agendas? Because if you really look at it, these individuals can't, they are serving a purpose of awakening us, right? The bad actors are forcing us to like look at this is not working. And so I like to look at it from a place of holism like that. But what would you love to see? Like, what is a what does a higher vision of the world look like to you?
I mean, going back to your point on World War II, Jack Fresco, if you actually look up on one of his short videos,
Yeah,
he talked about all the resources that was used in World War II from 1939 to 1945,
yeah.
what it could have built if it was allocated properly instead of
Mm,
into munitions, war efforts, and all of that. So there's that
mm,
perspective.
mm.
There's also the other side of history. You could look who funded, the Germans, who funded the other sides, who was playing both sides of the
Yeah,
war,
yeah,
if
yeah.
they want to go through that. But I mean, where I look at where I want the world to be, I want the world to be where my children, my future children,
Hmm.
they don't have to worry about the struggling. They don't have to worry about the conflict. They do not have to worry about the problems which we're dealing with today because, like I said, there's the answers are already there. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, technically, in my whole course, my training, I found all the answers. I've just composed it. I've summarized it down instead of having to dig across the internet to find all of this. I've brought it and I'll put it all together.
Yeah.
And I look at it, why can't we live in a world where, we have the communities and each community is working with other subsequent communities where people represent themselves instead of having an elected official. Because if you
Mhm.
have any form of either direct democracy or direct representation, you cut out the politicians, you cut out the lobbyists, you cut out a bunch of these other factors. And then those malicious intents, well, they can't happen because everybody has their own vote.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be almost mandated that in order to participate, you got to have a say in the system.
Yeah.
Because being like abstaining from, say, do you want, say, this such and such project to go forward? It's almost like going, if you abstain and then you complain about it later, it's like you had a vote on it. Why
Yeah.
did you not go no?
Yeah.
Right? Like it's to teach people to understand that you are in control. You are part of the society. Why not go and have your say being voiced? At the same time, it's having people understand the underpinning, like another big factor. I don't really touch on it much in my community. I did a podcast on it in September with
Mm-hmm.
it was Ari Bliss on her podcast talking about healthy masculinity. But
Mm-hmm.
apparently in the early 1900s, they stopped doing male rites of passage.
Okay.
1909 was when it started to fall out of fashion.
Interesting.
1909. I don't have a car that old. My oldest car is 1928.
Yeah.
So 1909, they stopped doing male rites of passage where you go from boy to adolescent
Yeah.
to actually being a man.
Yeah.
That says a lot when you look at the world today, because
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of men who are actually boys
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they've never gone through that when they actually needed the swift
Yeah.
challenge.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, I remember because in my inspired studies and what led me to indigenous wellness, like I went through a fast and fast on the land, and I had to prepare for it and everything. And I remember the elder of that, welcoming me after, back, and that's what he called me, a man. And I realized that was my rite of passage, but like that's not a common thing. Like I literally did a vision quest, and a lot of men in different indigenous societies would do that. And yeah, I think what you're saying is really important. There's this been this swinging pendulum between between the masculinity and femininity, but really for a healthy society to exist, it starts at that fundamental level, I think, within ourselves first, and then in our families. And there's a harmonious nature of support between uh more of a divinely oriented masculinity and a divinely oriented femininity that expresses and is the glue of a family. I feel like it's essential. And Mantak Chia and Taoist perspectives talk about this too. I How do you see, like, you talk about like not needing some of the current government forms, and I feel like it needs to happen. If it's going to happen in a way that it has to be gradual and conscious, because currently the current systems that are in place, as maybe as much as they do harm, they also preserve a certain order in society. It's not like we can just go to a chaos. But do you think, how do you see like emerging technologies? Like when you were talking about voting on specific things, I can see blockchain. That's definitely a superpower that blockchain can afford us as a species, to be able to vote in real time on matters of conflict. Are we going to deliver, food to this part of the world that had a disaster? Like everyone could vote and say, yeah, let's send them this amount of money. And like we could all have tangible votes, and we don't need representation in the same way that we did, with these emergent technologies. But how do you see things evolving, especially with AI and all these things that is the buzz of our term, knowing what Christopher?
I mean, I always go like, even when he was talking, oh, AI is the future, AI is the future, it's the AI tsunami. It's like going, yeah, what was it, the 1880, the Carrington event. I forget the exact date in the 1880s when that happened, and it lit up the sky from the North Pole to the equator with red, um, like aurora borealis. It
Mm,
set telegraph lines on fire. It
mm,
took out all that infrastructure for a
mm,
little while. They've done talks about, like, to say, we can't change our system overnight. a big enough solar flare, it's
Mm,
gonna hit that breaker. It's gonna break it. It's gonna knock out all of the power generation capabilities. It will cook all the data centers. I mean, there's a author, I don't know if you heard of him. He wrote 60 Seconds After. I think it's 60 Seconds After.
no.
He has, it's a 3 book series, and he talks about the US getting hit by an EMP. And he
Mm,
talks about what happens as society degrades.
mm.
So to say, we can't have all these these systems, well, it's like if a major cataclysm happens, we're going into chaos, not anarchy. We're going into chaos because there is no rule of order anymore. There is no governance to keep everybody in line. And it's, you know, absolute everybody for themselves. So
Well,
I,
see, I think that's the fear, though. I can't necessarily agree with you because I feel like there's this underlying nature of humankind that there is innate goodness in us, and I feel like this is why community is so much more important than ever, Christopher, because you know, even if, say, we lost all our abilities to have telecommunications right now, I mean, we have the capacity to rebuild them. We have the, the knowledge structure, and we have the skill sets to do that. We know that. And I also feel like, you know, as much as there is these gross activities of the ego in the world, and we see the results of these, everything from like genocides and wars and things like these things happen. But if we look at the whole of humankind and everywhere I've traveled, like humans are generally, genuinely as well, um, good. And I feel like there is altruism, there is good-heartedness. I truly believe that the foundation of reality actually is a loving intelligence. And so that's why I believe that true spiritual enlightenment is the only solution for us to really transcend to the next equitable piece. You could take away all the technologies and everything. If we are in our true essence and are the embodiment of our true soulful self, I feel like we will create a beautiful, state of the world, like what we like to call home, heaven on Mother Earth. And so I mean, I do not mean to disagree with you, but I do feel like this is part of the narrative that we've been um told. If something were to happen like that, clearly there would be fear, clearly there would be fear, but this will call upon leadership for people who know better in our communities to stand up and to gather and to be a beacon. And I believe there's more of this than we like to think. I just don't think that everyone's just gonna run around like crazy and lose their minds. We can work together. I really believe that togetherness is possible. So like that's why I love school. And so on that note though, in your awareness of these things and these larger systems and stuff, how are you preparing people to be of service to this greater legacy that's going to impact our world? Like, what is your kind of guiding light in that? What do you call people toward?
well, I mean, I'm looking at it like, yes, you have that potential cataclysm that could happen, but it's again the awareness, right? That I mean, we don't know when it's going to happen, but it could happen either in our lifetime or our children's lifetime.
Yeah.
But I look at it too, like we need to go plant the seeds. We got to spread the knowledge. We have to get out there, have the connections. Because
Hmm.
say the lights go out for months, weeks at a time. If you have the seeds planted, you have the connections. Like you talk about the community, we can build that when the
Hmm.
system and the grid is down. So yeah, we can
And we can prepare
mitigate.
for it. Yeah.
Yeah, we can mitigate some of the chaos. We're not going to mitigate all the chaos because there's a lot of people who they rely on the TV to tell them how to think.
Yeah.
And those are the people who, when there is no TV telling them what to think, they don't know what to think. So
Yeah.
you're not going to get through to that section, but we can mitigate it by getting through to as many people as possible to create the communities, the safety nets, the places where the seeds can germinate in the dark. We
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
germinate, we can build from, but you have to understand that with the great cataclysm, uh, that big event, it also creates the opportunity. Like it's a reset button for society.
Mhm.
As much as we'd fear it, those in power fear it because all what they're building also disappears. All their control falls
Yeah,
away at the
yeah.
same time. So if it's a reset button and we can say, hey, no, you're not taking the reins anymore. We got it. We don't want you to have it.
Yeah.
What are you going to do now?
Well, I always, again, I look at the whole picture because I really think when we're talking about the us they conversation, it's still from a vantage of ego. And I really do believe there's something that interconnects us that is totally beyond words, man. And I've touched it. It's come into my body, and I feel like part of how I love to guide people is to reconnect with it. Because when you can really look in your brother or your sister's eye and see how interconnected you are, and that shared life that we have, we're really the same. We're really the same. We might have different. We've had totally different journeys that have given us different qualities of expression and different gifts. Um, I I think even the ones that, yeah, they're being programmed on a daily basis, like you said, they got the boob tube thing, just like they
Yes.
live, just like, and they're like, well, but you know what? When that does disappear, that panopticon goes, they're not just gonna sit on their couch anymore. They're gonna be like, whoa, what's next? They're gonna be looking, and I feel like this is what we've talked about underlying this conversation is that need for leadership. You're taking approach of empowering men. I think this is really important. Helping men to understand their power. I look at it. I'm the focus on community to me is so important because I feel like we talk a lot about on the show how children are not only are leaders for us, are teachers for us, they're also leaders. I think in a lot of ways we have old souls coming into this world with profound gifts that are you began the show with talking about past lives experience and stuff, and we could probably have a whole other show about that stuff. But I do feel like we're in a really interesting time. We had a guest on who's a specialist in Ayurveda, and we talked a little bit about the timelines because we are in a Kali Yuga right now. Like we are in
Yes.
a time of forgetting, but it's also he gave me this awareness that we are in a very special Kali Yuga. We're in a golden Kali Yuga, so there's this potentiation for truly awakening to a golden era within this. And I feel like we're feeling the pressure of this as a species, like because we all want, even those theys want similar things. We want to be healthy, we want to be happy, we want to live in abundance. And some of us think that we need to take from others to have those things, but that's not the truth of existence. That's a belief that has clouded the ego, I think. So what I know we're getting close to our hour here, a little bit past there, Christopher. I I see your passion and I see all the things, the ways that you want to help this new age to come in. And I appreciate how you're like a going against the grain kind of guy. I feel like that there's so much brilliance in that for people. What what's your next steps? What do you want to see happen with your community? What are you building now?
My next steps, it's getting more visibility, getting in front of more of the right guys. I mean, the open-minded, the men who have families, preferably if they have leadership qualities
Hmm.
or they want to grow those leadership qualities, those would be the ones I want to seek out because I mean, it might be weird to have multiple captains in the same on the same boat, you could say, but if I can inspire other leaders to take the lead in other communities and stuff, that would be ideal. I mean, I
Hmm.
would go back, like talking about the Kali Yuga and the timelines, like I mean, also it kind of goes back to the car stuff, going back to the Amish, because
Hmm.
go, all right, looking a bit more about our current timelines and stuff, you read into it, and why, here's the question, why did the Amish stop their technology when they did?
Hmm. Hmm.
Because there's beliefs and there's other books which follow along with their Christian beliefs that the period has changed and that we've entered the little season.
Hmm.
And if you go down that rabbit hole and you understand all of that picture, like we got a lot of different. You have the little season, you have the Kali Yuga, as you mentioned,
Hmm.
you have isn't there's a few other like terms too that are like
Hmm.
we've got all these intermeshing together at the
Hmm.
same time. And then you have like there's also a convergence where technology is getting closer and closer to the point to match human intelligence, which
Yep.
it's like that's really cool. That's also really scary.
Yeah.
Because like, okay, now you can talk to computers, you can talk to stuff. I don't know if you heard it just on Twitter last night about there is an AI only message board where they have AI bots talking with each other. I don't
Okay.
know if it's true or not. And when they had someone got into it, like an actual person and started doing screenshots of it, they started freaking out. So it's like,
Interesting.
is that real? Is that, made up to scare? I don't know where to put it. And then I started getting other stuff in the feed about going,
Mm.
I guess I'll watch and see before I make my judgment call on that because it's it's out there. It's
Yeah.
out there.
Well, there
I
is a lot. Yeah, sorry, go ahead. I don't want to cut you
yeah,
off.
like I look at it like yes, technology it can help us if used in the right way.
Mhm.
If AI is used in the proper way, it can assist humanity. If it's used in the improper way, it can create major problems. It could destroy humanity.
Mhm.
We're walking that line. And it's now the choice of the corporations, the corporate individuals, the individuals themselves and businesses, or who are using it within their jobs, who will push it to one side or the
Mhm.
other.
Mhm.
And then on top of that, you have the AI being put into robotics.
Mhm.
That's another huge factor. In
Mhm.
Japan, it was Elon with his robots. I
Yeah.
forget what those are called.
Yeah.
And like you look at all of this, and I mean, I guess old soul. Would I want to have a robot around the house? No. I mean, I got cars that are crank start. I
Yeah.
got stuff that you can run on alcohol.
Yeah. Nice.
Why do I want to have something telling me how I'm supposed to do stuff? Why
Yeah.
do I want to have a computer that's going to match my intelligence or supersede my intelligence? Why
Yeah.
not have it where I go to old ways? Like people go ebooks. I go print books. Like
Yeah.
literally,
Yeah.
I go print books.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Like
hear
I,
you.
I prefer when I know what I have and I got control over what I have. I don't want to have 1,000 books on a digital device and the battery dies and you can't charge it. I'd
Yeah.
rather have a library of 10,000 or 100,000 books that you can just pull open a book or a reference manual, go to your section, find it, do what you need to do.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. No, I
Like,
hear you, man. Yeah. I think a lot of what you're saying, there's probably a lot of people out there feel the same way to you, like that want that just real connection to something tangible. And yet we are also juxtaposed. It's a paradox, right? Because we have both of these things happening. There's people who want to go back and live the land and who are like the Amish, who are living that way. And we have other friends that we know as well who are living very simply like that. And yet there's this push forward that we're seeing in like robotics and AI and all this stuff. And there is a lot of, I feel like there's a lot of polarization. There's people very afraid of what it will lead to, and then there's people who are super enthusiastic. I kind of feel like this middle road is important. That's why I talk about our spiritual maturity being so important to meet these things so that we can practice our discernment and our wisdom and take the best of what makes humankind beautiful and decide from that point, because you can, like you said, it's a tool. You can use it to program something, just like money, right? Or anything that we love. We can use things that we love to cause harm, or things that are intended to be loving to cause harm. And I appreciate that you want to empower people to see the bigger picture and the legacy that they're creating. What is one project that you feel your heart's in terms of like an impact project for legacy that you personally would like to see brought forth into the world, Christopher?
an impact project for legacy.
Yeah.
I mean, I would really like to see like what Jack Fresco talked about. I would love to see one of his communities, his circular resource-based economy communities actually go forward. Not
Mhm.
not not a pie section. I want to see the full circle. I want to see his concept become reality. I want to see other ways of how we can go about stuff become reality. And I mean, on top of that, it's like, why can't we like the world hunger? I look at that. That's the lowest hanging fruit because if you
Mhm.
go
Mhm.
vertical farming, they produce 200, 300% more food. Like you look into that, you have also like hydroponics that's been taking off, and like all this other ways for agriculture where
Yeah.
you can take food costs for vegetables and stuff, you can drop it right down.
Hmm.
You look at also Joel Salatin in North Carolina. I've got one of his books because I follow Justin Rhodes. He talks about doing like very sustainable agricultural practices on his farm, and he rotates cattle and he takes care of a herd of cattle,
Hmm.
which the way he maintains the farm, he doesn't have to buy like straw or hay. The way he rotates it from
Hmm.
field to
Hmm.
field to field, it just works out, and he can like he talks very much in depth
Hmm.
about if we go back to those practices,
Yeah.
we can grow real food. Like if you have Joel Salatin's practice for the cattle, the poultry, the other livestock, and then you combine that with the more modern approaches for agriculture, hydroponics, and vertical farming, if you blend those two, what food crisis at that point?
Hmm.
We don't
Hmm.
need to have all this fake bullshit that they're trying to feed us when we can grow real natural food that is way
Hmm.
more healthy, way more nutritious for us,
Yeah.
and way better for everybody. And then on top of that, if you eliminate the food, okay, housing. Well, there's concepts out there that we can build houses faster, easier,
Oh, sure.
stronger.
Yeah.
I mean, again, look at Tartaria. Look at like we step back there. Those houses were done out of brick and like massive blocks and stuff.
Hmm.
And those houses stood for an incredible long time, like potentially thousands of years.
Hmm.
Why can't we build houses like that today? Most of our stuff is stick frame construction that has thermal bridging, that has so many problems. Yet back then we knew how to do architecture. That was so much,
Hmm.
it was better for us. It was lower maintenance. And then, you have your food, you have your shelter. The water isn't that difficult to solve after that point because
Hmm.
it kind of ties into the food. And
Hmm.
then you can step up to the next piece of the Maslow's hierarchy to
Yeah.
help people. And then you have more people who are empowered, who can do more in society, who can create more. And the higher we get everybody up that pyramid,
Hmm.
the more potential. Like again, Jack Fresco says, why can't we have 1,000 Edisons? Why can't we have 1,000 Teslas?
Yeah.
Why are we not having any more great people?
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. I wondered about this too, these things, and like you've mentioned Tartaria a long time, a few times, for people not knowing that it's the it's based on some old maps of like, especially in Europe, right? This concept that there was a civilization here before our modern civilization, that it explains why we had such advanced architecture in a time where apparently no electricity was supposed to be around. I mean, we're talking about all the like even in the town where I'm here, like the Parliament buildings and all these like the World Fairs, all these the large like the Arc de Triomphe in France and like these things that would have been meticulously done by hand, huge structures that without electricity would are almost impossible to consider. Plus, if you look at the architecture, the sound resonance technologies that's in a lot of these old churches that amplify sound, and they see the you know
The
the
bells,
way the bells, yeah, the bells that were all destroyed that actually use sound to create or probably distribute wireless energy potentially. And we see also ancient historical remnants of this, like with the pyramids, and we knew they were capped with gold and probably were drawing power from the ionosphere, similar to some of these technologies. So there's a lot that's coming to light. And one of the things that a really profound world teacher said to me one time, Christopher, because I feel like it might give you some. Not, I don't want to say hope. Like I feel like you don't need hope. You have a visionary kind of way of thinking, but gave you some perspective. She was talking about how, consciousness has this contraction and expansion quality to it. So we go through these cycles of history where we intentionally forget because what comes out the other end is even more beautiful than what we had before. And I feel like we all have a responsibility to embrace where we are now. Like it's easy to get caught in the past and get caught in how we want to be the future. And I think it's important to keep a higher vision. But if we can look at the wholeness, and I brought it up few times, I feel like we have an opportunity to see in our day-to-day interactions with one another, like there is this interconnection that we don't fully understand. Like there's that which we do not know, we don't know. But you are my brother, and we are drawn from the same source. And if we can find that source of unconditional love that gave us life and then live from that, I think what we're capable of as species is far beyond what any of the people that I've heard about talk about Tartaria. And this, I feel like we are destined for mastery mastery of the elements, mastery of people are obsessed with manifestation. But to me, manifestation is just it's just a direct giving from a place of love and showing like, if you need bread, here's bread. If you need healing, here's healing. If you need abundance, here's abundance, because that is what our shared creator is always giving to us. We just have forgotten as a species. And I feel like we're reawakening to it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, one other thing that I like to talk about would be to go. I mean, there's other people, a lot of other people. If you talk about ancient history and the pyramids, the Hall of Records, that was the one place in Egypt I would love to see. It's either under the left foot of the Sphinx, which, if you know the person who runs Egypt and all of that, um, I I don't want to mispronounce his name because it's a very Egyptian name, but he has everything tightly locked and sealed. He
Mhm.
doesn't want any of that getting out.
Mhm.
There's also the labyrinth, which might talk about the history and all that, because the Hall of Records ties back to Atlantean
Mhm.
technology.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
now if you take, I don't know, maybe Tartaria and the Hall of Records have they actually tie together because maybe some of Tartaria technology was part of that.
Mhm.
But if you would take the technology of the past plus the knowledge what we have, like yeah, we can create an incredible future, but we have to also understand that part of what we're creating might have already been created in the past, like the
Mhm.
electric cars.
Yeah,
It's not a new technology.
for
They've been
sure.
around since like 1910, 1912.
Yeah.
And to say, oh yeah, we got these brand new electric. No, no, there's vintage electric cars
Yeah.
that don't
Well,
catch on fire.
Henry Ford had not only was it an electric car, it was like indestructible fiber hemp fiber board, right?
Yep,
So
that
yeah,
too.
I agree with you. Like, and you know what's beautiful about this time, Christopher, and the internet, and I feel like where AI is going to be a really solid bridge in terms of we're in an age where people can find out anything, and we're in an age where, despite things maybe, being at risk of a larger things, we are also um we're also awakening to who we are, the consciousness energies. I don't know about you, but I'm talking to more and more people who are just inspired to follow their calling, to go all in on the soulful reason that they're here. So I thank you for playing your part and building your community and seeking to help people through legacy creation. On that note, I always love to ask guests, if you had a megaphone and you could talk to the whole world and everyone could hear you, what would you like to say to everyone?
Well, I mean, I would honestly, I know it's controversial, but I would be wanting to educate them on the monetary system because, as Henry Ford said, if people understood how it actually works, there'd be revolution by morning. So if
Hmm.
you actually
Hmm.
get people to understand how the fractional reserve monetary system actually works, we could have said revolution. And then understanding the other side of it is going, why can't we work together? Why can't we do more? Why can't we build together?
Hmm.
Because once we say get rid of the system which is stopping us from doing more, restricting our growth, restricting our ability to create, and we could actually build, work together, create the communities. And like you talk about the higher consciousness, that's a huge end goal. The more people you get there, the further we can go,
Hmm.
more we can create, because you have more people who can lift others up.
Yeah, yeah, we ignite one another. And
Yeah.
yeah, I
I mean,
appreciate that, man. Yeah.
there's like that image where you have when one person has like hits enlightenment, and you have the match sticking above the basically carpet of other matches, it will
Mm,
eventually burn down and
mm.
it just lights,
Yeah.
just takes one to get there and you light everybody else up.
Yeah. Well, I do believe that this is what, like, we've had several masters on our planet. And I think uh the most profound one in terms of demonstrating the power of our human potential in body has been Yeshua, who we all call Christ. But to me, Christ is a consciousness of being our own Messiah, being our own Savior, and recognizing that it is only from aligning ourselves internally that we can ignite that match and ignite that in others. And this is what I love about community, because I mean, you have so much knowledge. I can tell, Christopher, you could probably talk for days about all the things you know, and I get that, and I appreciate that about you. And I know you're going to help a lot of people in terms of connecting to building something that lasts beyond them. So thanks for doing what you do, man. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
you're welcome, Nathaniel.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience tonight before we invite our daughter Luciana to just thank everyone for watching?
No, I think we covered quite a bit. I mean, yes,
Yeah.
we could definitely go on for another couple hours, but yeah, it's
I hear you. Yeah, I think supper time's calling. Luciana's going to be going to bed soon too. This is a later podcast than we usually do. So I really appreciate you coming on, man. Blessings to you and all of those that you touch, and everyone on Vancouver Island. I have a special place for Vancouver Island. That's where our daughter is celebrating her birth. Actually, tomorrow she was born on Imbolc on February 1st, so I look forward to returning to the island one day, and I look forward to meeting in person, Christopher. Yeah. So if there isn't anything else that you'd like to share, oh well, aside from your school community, how can people find you? I think that's a good
I'm
question.
on LinkedIn, so it's
Okay.
just Christopher Bauer on
Okay.
LinkedIn, Threads and Instagram, Christopher_Bauer with number 4 behind me, same handle on both of those.
Okay.
And yeah, those are most of my social medias. I have my online training, which links to my school community, which is leavinglegacylive.com. The school community is Legacy Collaborative. There's a hyphen between. It's not a compound. So Legacy hyphen Collaborative. And yeah, they can find me through all those routes and stuff.
Amazing. And we'll put that in the show notes as well, Christopher. That's awesome, man. Thanks for coming on the show. Really appreciate you. And to all our guests and listeners out there, blessings to you and your families. And we look forward to seeing you next time. And all the best. Blessings. Thanks for watching. You say ciao ciao.
Bye.
I love you so much.